if you want meaningful relationships, I don't even care about the masculine part. If you want meaningful relationships and you do not know how to practice vulnerability, you really can't practice vulnerability without honesty either. And so are you looking for real friends, or are you looking for surface level friends that, keep you in your BS? I mean, you got to choose, right? You can't have one or the other. You can't be vulnerable and also have friends that are just incredibly fake. It just doesn't make any sense.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. You are welcome to the Major Pane podcast, the only podcast crafted to guide men like you on unraveling your uniqueness to transform the world around you. If you are a lady joining us, feel comfortable. Listen as we hope women learn how to build better men through the golden nuggets we will be sharing and learning. Follow this podcast wherever you are listening. Kindly like and subscribe if you are watching this podcast on YouTube. Man, as we know, we can repress our emotions either due to wanting to be part of the status quo or because, say, some men just lack intelligent ways to show their feelings. Over time, this attitude can limit them from building a special bond to those around them. These men have no idea how lack of showing emotion can impact their relationship with their family, their partner, their friends, or colleague at work. But who says it is not okay to be vulnerable as a man? Joining me today to speak on masculine vulnerability is Theophilus Zhuang, a transformational coach. He is an Asian Christian entrepreneur, a father, and a lover of God. He is one of the descendants of the philosopher Zhuang-zi. Welcome, Theophilus, to this wonderful podcast. Woohoo! A round of applause.
Thank you, Major Pane.
Wow, I feel honored to have one of the greatest philosopher descendant on this podcast. How did you know, though? At what point did you know that you are one of the descendants?
Yeah, so in China, and in each specific hometown, they will have a genealogy book. And so this is literally big, thick red book.
Wow.
And it lays out all the genealogy. And so my father actually has the book at his house, trace it all the way back to Zhuang-zi himself. And so, yeah, that's it. It's an amazing. I'm surprised they even kept records of it, but yeah,
amazing.
Anybody with that last name will be able to know who's who. Yeah.
Wow. So I believe that there's this philosophical wisdom that flow in the family. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, it's wise to say that about every family, right? There's specifics, different wisdom that, every family has it in them. Yeah, definitely feel that about my own family. Absolutely.
Wow, that's great. That's great. So I remember from our very first conversation on LinkedIn, and while we were preparing for this podcast, you mentioned that you were running your own software as a service. I don't know if you made mention that you had your company where you were selling like tech stack for coaches. Can you please tell us more about that and also how you found your purpose in life?
Yeah, so that software stuff was really a transition out of something that I thought was life-giving for me. About almost 5 years now, going into entrepreneurial space, I understood who I was, and to an extent. I knew that technology was something that I wanted to take part in. The internet wasn't going anywhere. It's recession-proof. And so, started my own digital marketing agency. And that wasn't fulfilling. I self-sabotaged along the way. And because I was working with a certain piece of software, I was like, well, this is an amazing thing to sell to coaches because they need help with their tech. And, so I transitioned my company into selling that software to coaches. And in the process of marketing to coaches, a bunch of them were like, hey, you should totally think about being a coach yourself. And that's really where I started to make the discovery. I was like, man, yeah, and actually more context to that is 2 years before I started the digital marketing agency, we were looking at coming back from China. and a mentor in Hong Kong walked me through StrengthsFinder. And so in my assessment, I learned that I would make a good coach and a good counselor. And, at the time I wasn't ready for that journey. So to have that happen in those conversations when I was selling the software, that coaching was the thing, I was like, well, this is my opportunity. God's telling me something here. And as I did more discoveries about who I was from the inside out, every strength, every identity, that this was it. And that's really how I discovered it.
Wow, that's great. You are the second guest speaker who I have on this podcast that is talking on StrengthsFinders. And I took StrengthsFinders myself. That was 2 years ago, and it literally transformed my life. And for real, when my mentor was telling me about StrengthsFinders, I thought it was like a joke when she was just telling me the perks and the advantage of knowing my strength. I just felt like, but when I read it, I was like, wow, it's mind blowing.
Right.
And speaking about strength, I know we men, we love to identify as being strong. And sometimes we try to separate ourselves from anything that has to do with vulnerability or showing vulnerability. And I want to ask you, in line to masculine vulnerability, like what experience do you have in line to that?
Yeah, so in my family, it's actually really strange because, and I think my dad certainly broke that. He exercised and showed a lot of vulnerability in everything that he did. And if you actually know anything about culture in China, is that people are typically pretty hard. Showing vulnerability in any sense is frowned upon, I guess you could say. And so, that's what I grew up in. And so to me, that's normal. Chinese being hard right now and showing a good front is something that's actually very foreign to me. Obviously, we have the world the way that it is. Any kind of vulnerability, especially with men, is seen with a stigma and in a negative light, a weakness, right? And that's really just not the case.
Yeah. And what would you say so far, like, are there some benefits in terms of masculine vulnerability?
Yeah, I think that it requires you to be very honest with yourself. And now, I love to think about things from a relational standpoint, because if we're not vulnerable and we're not honest with ourselves, the people that we surround ourselves with are probably going to perpetuate that too. And so if you want meaningful relationships, I don't even care about the masculine part. If you want meaningful relationships and you do not know how to practice vulnerability, you really can't practice vulnerability without honesty either. And so are you looking for real friends, or are you looking for surface level friends that, keep you in your BS? I mean, you got to choose, right? Can't have one or the other. You can't be vulnerable and also have friends that are just incredibly fake. It just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, that makes so much sense, because I keep hearing people talking about how it's just very hard to connect with people. Like, they just complain how difficult it is connecting with people. But then when you do your research very well, you just notice that they too are lacking the spark of connection. They are lacking the magnet itself, which is them just being authentic first and just accepting themselves the way they are, their weakness, their strength. First of all, even knowing themselves. You can accept what you don't know, right? So so it's more like people haven't really done that homework, but yet they just expecting people to accept them the way they are, when they don't even know who they are. You understand, right?
Yep. Yeah. And that goes even further for fatherhood, I think. Like, I can't speak to motherhood, but mothers definitely don't have issues showing the emotions. Females' brains are operating in a different way, and for males, we have to do that, especially as fathers, because daughters and sons, raising them is totally different, and work that we're not willing to do, and the way we're not, if our lives are not emulating a certain way, or it creates a vacuum within our children that suddenly I'm looking for that in men, or I'm looking for that in a spouse. It's like, it's very dangerous when we don't show that vulnerability as men to our children, especially.
Mm-hmm. Can you speak about how, like, showing that vulnerability, like, how does it impact a man's relationship? Like, maybe you can give us some examples. Like, I know you are a father. I know you have awesome kids. Can you just speak from your experience how showing vulnerability has impacted your relationship, your career, and say your friends?
Yeah. Obviously, I don't like to present an image of falsehood. At least I try my best not to.
Mm-hmm.
And so, with my children, it's like, I want them to open up to me, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I can't have them, like, they won't open up to me if I don't open up to them.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a one-way street. And so we have to be able to demonstrate that and show them that we feel emotions, and that it's a very human thing, and it's okay, and it's not a sign of weakness. The only reason society perpetuates it the way it does is because we carry it into our families, and then it becomes gospel over generations.
Mm-hmm.
For me in my work, being vulnerable, well, nobody's perfect. I just had a conversation with a gentleman today. He was like, I need to delete certain photos off of my Facebook. And I was like, well, it might be the face of your business, but, striving for perfection doesn't really present a good image for your business. Like, people want to know that you're a human too.
Yeah.
And so in that sense, it's like, it's important to be real where we are. And so obviously with relationships, with a marriage, if you're not vulnerable with your wife, why is she going to be vulnerable back with you?
Exactly. Right. Mm-hmm.
And then at that point, it's like, well, then we're going to open up that can of worms. It's like, I'm not going to open up to you. Suddenly I can't rely on you emotionally. Where do we go for that? Someone else or something else. And nobody wants to be replaced like that,
That's very true. Yeah, very true. There's this devotional that someone gave my wife and I as a wedding gift. It's the 5 love language devotional.
Yes.
So we read it like every day, and there was this like, I think because it has 366 devotional, so it's pretty short. It's just like a regular devotional with the Bible verse and then the message for that day and then prayers at the end, right? And so for the past 4 days, there was this sets of intimacy. He was talking about like social intimacy, intellectual intimacy, spiritual intimacy, and I've forgotten the others, but though there were like about 5. And the intellectual intimacy he was talking about was just you sharing your thoughts with your spouse, right? You just anything. He said we think about 50,000 thoughts a day. And he said that, of course, of course, we don't want to spam our partner with like all the thoughts. But then one thing I took out of that, and I just kind of see that thing with my wife and I, wherein she just tells me everything like that goes on every day. And sometimes I share too. And sometimes when I share, I ask myself like, okay, hope at this point I am not becoming unmanly, because culturally speaking, as African men, like we're just preconditioned to be very stoic and, just manly, like I can tell you everything.
Right.
Right. But then I noticed that just sharing opens the door for connection. You understand? And I noticed that the moment I share some things, and we can sometimes, I can say that sometimes one reason that prevents some men from even sharing could be that they are not in control of that situation.
Yeah.
And it's more like they open up, she reacts, but they can control their own reaction to her reaction. And because of that, it's like, oh my God, maybe I should have said this, or I shouldn't open up next time. But no, I don't know if you've had moments like this. What do you think about this kind of?
Yeah, no, I'm thinking that, even obviously personal experience is like, it's the unknown. It's, no offense here, but you don't know how your words can come off, right? The funny thing I always talk about is like, go to the store with your wife and she's like, does this make me look pretty or beautiful? It's like a lose-lose. It's like win-win, but it's a lose-lose situation, because it's like, doesn't matter what you say, it's going to be like, like, there's going to be this chance that it could upset her. And so, and that makes me think of, well, that means that you're not sharing enough with your wife. You're not talking enough with your wife, because then there shouldn't be any kind of this unknown. And actually it's funny, because I did for the longest time keep things to myself, didn't say anything about it. And when it came time to be on the same page, it was just so obvious. Things that we were hiding and things that we were not talking about was just causing so much disconnect. And it was like, no wonder I wasn't talking to her. I wasn't saying things. And once we did, it was amazing, because I was like, wow, like God was working in your life in the same way. And suddenly we're like just meeting at the crest. It was just like, it was so beautiful. And so now it's like, okay, I mean, you said it, 60,000 thoughts or 50,000 thoughts or whatever. Think about how much we tell her. How many thoughts have you told your wife in the last week? Right? And so what's the percentage of that then? Are you even sharing 100 thoughts with her? 100 out of 60,000 is like nothing. That's not even, that's like a couple of decimal points, right? Like, yeah.
Wow, that's a good one. Yeah, honestly, like that shopping thing, I feel like every guy who has a partner, even not necessarily a wife, but if you have a partner, you have been in that shopping tight sport, man. Whatever, everything you say, you will make you.
Yeah.
You get it.
Yeah, we all get it.
We all get it.
I hope a bunch of them are like shaking, like nodding their head right now.
I'm telling you.
I should get my wife to listen to this.
Right? And honestly, sometimes I've learned how to, speaking about that honesty, right? Yeah, I've learned how to be very honest with my thoughts and mind how I share my honesty. And that's the other piece I feel like maybe we men could probably do a little bit of work on. How do we share that honesty? Because women, we know they can be very emotional. Even men too are very emotional, because how I got to know is there was one certain time something was really hitting me real deep. And I noticed that how somebody will speak to me regarding that particular thing, man, it can just crush me. You understand, right?
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
Yeah. So, and then it made me start reasoning like, okay, so same way I might just speak to my wife about something because I'm trying to be honest. The same way she too can be honest about those things. But if it's not framed in a way, it can just, tip the person off. You understand, right? And that is not the goal. That is not the goal why we are being honest. We are being honest because we want to build each other, want to help each other, right?
Yeah. And you're onto something here. Is like, if there's any men who are listening to this right now who are still single, good, because definitely work on these things before you go into a relationship. If you don't have this set in stone, you're going to end up finding somebody who's going to allow you to get away with that BS. If you are not able to be honest with yourself now, don't find somebody to try to be honest with, because they're not going to take it. Because like that scenario of going shopping, like if my wife was not a person that was understanding and lets words hit her, impact her internally that way, that can automatically set off the relationship. And at that point it's like, oh, you just think I'm fat, or you just think I'm this and that.
Yeah.
Like we all have a responsibility to our own honesty, I guess, to our own being. And so if we're not accepting of that of ourselves, we're going to try to get people to build us up when we don't even build ourselves up. It's just like, I don't know, like it's a really deep topic. And one that I think that men who are listening to this, like, definitely focus on yourself, work on yourself, because the person you look for is going to come from that place.
Awesome. This is really great. And I know to somebody who is listening too, they might be wondering, like, what are the practical ways or strategies a man can adopt in being vulnerable? What do you think, Theophilus?
Yeah, definitely stop running away, is to actually feel everything. Because I work with fathers, typically the fathers that I speak to, they are already they're already fathers. They haven't done that work beforehand. And so, when it comes to like the kids losing it and then them losing their temper, it's like they're struggling already with being present. The struggles of the world gets really heavy on them. Financials are really difficult. And so, even when they're playing with their kids, and I'm a perfect example actually is, when I'm playing with my kids, as an entrepreneur, sometimes it's just like my mind goes to, oh man, it's the month end. I got bills I got to pay. I got all this stuff, and I'm there, but I'm not there. And so definitely need to be present. What really helped me was mindfulness, meditation, trying to get my thoughts, being present. Another thing I do is also cold showers, cold plunges, ice baths, because you'll notice your thoughts go crazy in those moments, and all you can do to get through it is really to focus on your breath. And so feeling everything that needs to be felt in the present, and living now, and feeling how you feel, is one of the best first steps that I can give for being honest with yourself. Because if we don't feel those things, then we'll just take it at such a surface level. It'll be such a surface level thing. And because now it's like, when I speak out of dishonesty, or I do something out of dishonesty, I feel that guilt. I feel that conviction. That's like, oh, that's not right. This is not the image I want to present to my family. I'm present to feel that. Whereas if I'm encumbered with all this stuff in the world and all these stresses, man, it'd be so easy to just neglect those feelings and those emotions, and just get away with it. And people have gotten away with it, and that's the issue.
Exactly. Yeah, thank you so much for these key principles that you just shared, because these are very important things that is easy to ignore. We keep hearing of mindfulness, meditation, yoga, this, that, and sometimes we really don't understand the importance of those things to our daily life. And I can significantly see the difference between when I start my day meditating, doing exercise, doing those key self-care practice. I can see a huge difference, like day and night, between doing those things and not doing them. And I see how the day goes the next day. It's like, So,
right.
And something I'm also noticing is that it's as though we are to do these things as a source of preparation, knowing that there would always come a time where you will be tipped off. Because it's not all the time that, of course, like you would, just be in your 100% rightful, like thoughts, mind, emotions, right? However, it is the preparation you do before the time that makes you ready to embrace that moment and emotion. Because they say, like, when you're upset and, when emotions are still high, like the prefrontal cortex shut off. So it's the amygdala that starts working. But the moment we do these practices is building the connection, strengthening the connection between the prefrontal cortex and the amygdala, such that you have a stronger willpower and a stronger like self-control. Yeah,
absolutely. And speaking of brain chemistry, like, being honest, with yourself, like there's a whole bunch to that. Is like, if your mind is constantly in the negative, you're just going to beat yourself up, and, you're not going to own up to it. You're going to think that life sucks and that it's outside of your control. And that sends people down some really, really bad, spirals, and the results they see are definitely less than ideal. And so, like just understanding even how we physically work is very important. And I think one of the things that I always bring up in conversations with men is like, look up the reticular activating system. And so that's kind of like social media, actually. If you think about it, it's like, well, okay, I want to look more at, vaccines and or conspiracies. Well, what does social media feed back to you? Conspiracies, more to feed what you want and keep you on the platform. The RTS works the same way. No, RAS works the same way. Is that, it's not that there's more Teslas on the street. It's just that suddenly your awareness of it is increased and you see more of them on the street.
Exactly.
And so if we saturate it with negative, well, we're just going to find negatives everywhere to confirm, oh man, it's not sunny today, or man, you know, this, that, and the other.
That's very true.
Choose positive and find positive. Yeah.
Wow, that's a good one. Yeah, so Theophilus, you said something about working with fathers earlier on. Can you please just give us more insight about your coaching business? Like, who do you serve? Why did you choose fathers? Why not say single men?
Yeah, well, you know, if single men do come to me, you know, I won't be like, I'm sorry, I don't serve you. You know, the demographic that I serve on a marketing perspective is that it has to be very specific, right? And so I do say that I coach Asian Christian entrepreneurial fathers, but at the same time, it's like if somebody comes to me that's not a Christian, I won't say like I don't want to serve you because you don't believe. It's really a given a moment by moment basis. But typically, I love to get people to think about ultimately the transformational side. To describe what transformational is, transactional is more of the surface level stuff, the hard skills, like a soccer coach who teaches you how to dribble a ball, you know, how to kick a ball. A transformational coach would be somebody who comes in and talks to you about, you know, your beliefs, your mindset, teamwork, that kind of thing. And so my work predominantly is from the inside out. I love speaking to the whole being of a person, finding out what is the root, what is the essence of who they are, and then getting them to operate from that place. And so that discussion or that conversation does not primarily have to be just with fathers. It can be with men, it can be with women of all walks of life, doesn't matter what their beliefs is, just to get them to live from that present place. And actually that's exactly what we were talking about, is being very present. I want to help people live from that presence. And because I feel like the most change I can bring is for fathers, is the next generation. How can we impact the next generation? We need to start changing the rhetoric. We need to start changing the stigma. We need to start, you know, and I feel like fathers, at least it's from a position of experience, because I'm living the life that I feel fathers should consider, at least for themselves. Entrepreneurially too, is that, you know, don't be at the whim and will of a corporate setting. If that's not your calling, you know, find what that passion is, what the purpose is for your life, and give that away. That is, and even further to that is that kids, we can't tell our kids that our dreams are important when we're clocking in and out 9 to 5 or working 60 hours a week. Like, we have to show them what our dreams are worth for them to know what their dreams are worth. And so it's a very holistic approach to what I do. I think it impacts everything and directly impacts the wellness of our universe, I feel.
Wow, that's really transformational, trust me. Yeah. Wow, that's so good. I really appreciate the work you do. You know, that was one reason I connected with you, because I have a platform helping people define their purpose. Also, speaking of unique masculinity, right? And I'm like very intentional about working with other men just like yourself who are helping other men grow, because we can see that, men need a lot of enlightenment, not even empowerment this time. Men, I feel, are already empowered. They just need enlightenment, you know. And I can also see that, yes, a lot of men are just shy to come forward, shy to say, man, I need a tribe. I need someone to speak to. I need some support. I need someone to listen to me, you know? And I'm happy that you have your coaching business, and I would encourage anyone, you don't have to be Asian to contact Theophilus. You can reach out to him. Theophilus, where can they find you?
Yeah, so they can find me on my website. It's coachwiththeo.com. You can also find me on social media. I'm the only person with this name. I'm pretty sure nobody else in the world has this name. And those are good places to start. But yeah, I like to work with people. Just, I don't see the Asian in you. I don't see the African in you, man. Like, I don't see, you know, you're a person to me in there. And so anyways, I'm sorry, I'm just really passionate about that.
No, me too, trust me. Like, I have some, I have a brother who is Asian and his name is Paul. I'm telling you, he's Korean. It is so adorable. Like Paul, I remember the first time I saw him. And yeah, I'm gonna tell
Yeah.
Paul I spoke about him in this podcast. Trust me. Like it's so good. Like we just connect. And my wife, when she sees how we relate, she's just like, wow, like I can see
Yeah.
how much of a brother you guys are. And it's so good. It's so good. I would also be talking
Yeah.
on I'll be speaking on a particular topic which I call bromance, right? Which is I don't know if you know the word bromance, right?
I do know the word bromance, and actually, I do have I have like one of my closest brothers. He's also African too. He's my, we just hit it off, and I know I know exactly what you're going through. It's
Yeah.
that you're just on this level that doesn't matter what you've been through. You connect on a
Yeah.
level that's deeper than just the surface, and it's so rewarding. And I think that's something else that
Yeah.
we talked about too, the honesty. It's like, what are the practical things? It's like, surround yourself with people who want to see your vulnerability. Don't surround yourself with people who are fake
Exactly.
and surface level. Don't, like, those relationships will dictate the person that you're going to be. And so if you're the most interesting person in the room, you're going to be that you're not going to make it. You're not going to make progress in life. And so
Yeah.
go and find those people who will call out your BS, who will, encourage you to share more of who you truly are on the inside.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. That is a fantastic wrap, Theophilus. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
It's such a huge pleasure having you come on this podcast. And I hope that my audience, wherever they are listening from, they get to follow you and also reach out. And also, guys, share this podcast wherever you're listening from. Make sure you comment. If it's on the platform that accept comment, share it. Make sure as many men get to know about this, even as many women, let them get to know about masculine vulnerability, and it's important. We look forward to seeing you all in the next episode. Thank you, Theophilus.
Thank you, Paul.